Okay. We deal with different types of cubes. We have standard info cube, real time info cube, then we have direct access cube, then we have cube based on BAPI, then we have cube based on function model. And all these three are virtual bus. Okay. So totally we have 5 types of info cubes. One is standard info cube, real time cube, and direct access DTP cube based on BAPI, based on function model. And out of 5, these 3 are virtual. When I say virtual means what? They don't store any data physically, but at the runtime of the query, they get data from somewhere and then they give it to you. That's what I mean as virtual cubes. And as it is, you know about standard cube. What are the cube we've been dealing till today? It was just like, it was a standard cube. You know about creating standard cube, you know about loading data into it, and you can do reporting on top of it. Now, is my standard cube is a data target? And when I say data target, what does it mean? We can extract data from source and physically load into this object. And is it an info provider? What does it mean? We can do reporting. It does provide data for reporting also. And you know about how to create, how to load, how to do reporting on top of this cube. Next is real time cube. So real time cube is nothing but your normal standard cube plus planning. So when I say real time cube, it's like normal standard cube. Whatever you can do with standard cube, about creating standard cube, loading, reporting, everything. Whatever you can do with standard cube, it's all can be done with real time cube plus planning bus. That's the extra functionality bus. Now when I say planning, it's about writing records into the cube. Writing data into cube. So you would have some, it could be that end user would have some writing interface with Excel based or web based. You would just enter some data, then click save, the data goes and sits into the cube. That is what planning is. Okay. So when you're implementing applications with BPS or IP or BPC, they use these cubes. When they're implementing planning applications by using BPS, business planning and simulation, or integrated planning, or business planning and consolidation, they use this type of cubes. Okay, so it's about planning. You'll have backend cube as a backend table. You'll have some planning interface where they type in all the planning data, then they click save, the data goes and sits into my cube. That is planning bus. So in case of real time cube, it acts like normal standard cube plus what? The planning function, which means writing data into the cube. Okay, but the point here is both cannot be done at a time. Say, let's say I create a real time cube, you want to do loading, you want to do writing, both cannot be done at a time, either loading or planning. So you can switch the mode. If the cube is in planning mode, you can do planning. If the cube is in the loading mode, you can do loading bus. That is it, game layer. And just one more I'll tell you. So I would like to create my, now I'm showing how to create a cube, real time cube. I'm just using copy from and then Just see, by default for standard, it enables the checkbox standard cube. If you want that to be real time cube, then what do you want? You'll enable that as what? Real time cube. You'll enable that as real time cube. So this becomes real time cube. I don't want so much of this. Yeah. So I just have product, sales org, year, and then amount bus. Activate this cube. It's like normal cube creation, nothing different. See, when you right click on this planning cube, you have an option called what is planning specific properties. Here you have. Hello? అవునండి ఇప్పుడు నేను క్లాస్లో ఉన్నాను. 1 hour తర్వాత చేస్తాను ఫోన్. ఓకే. So when you right click on this, you have option called change real time load behavior. Here you see real time data target can be loaded with data planning not allowed. So when this data point is selected, what does it mean? You can do loading but no planning. But if I select this, data target can be planned but data loading is not allowed, means what? Now I'm switching on to what? Plan. Now it is in plan mode. I can do planning this. So once it is enabled for planning, they can start using this cube into BPS or IP or BPC for planning this. Just to simulate how the planning looks like. Okay, I'm only simulating. This is not the original planning. We can use this T code RS input. Just create, change or create, execute. So you can create new record or change an existing data record. I'll say create new record. They'll have some layout like this. But they'll have some layout where they just type in, say, they need some P01 product. I'm planning it for this sales org for the year 2017. My plan is, like, say, I'm supposed to have an amount of 12. This sales org future years called planning cheskuntaru like this, and then they click save. And this data goes and sits into my cube. If you see this, and form manage, it forms one request. Is it open? Yes. So if it is yellow, is it available for reporting? Was no gada. You see this data sitting in, and all the planning request comes with this name APO or something. Don't worry on this request. So this data sits in here, and they also can do the change of the transaction. Say for this, let's say it was not 12,000, so they wanted it as 14. So I changed from value from 12,000 to 14,000. Is my cube additive? Cube is additive, right? But when I change from 12,000 to 14,000, cube already has 12,000. So when they do change of the planning records, it does do automatic adjustment posting into the cube. So it takes an adjustment posting of 2,000 automatically into the cube. So 12 to make it 14, it has made an adjustment posting of 2,000 automatic. Yeah. Suppose if I reduce this, okay, this is supposed to be 10,000, not 14,000. So cube already has volts 14, so it has to make it 10 by making minus 4,000 posting. Automatically system will take care of doing that. So do you see a record with minus 4,000? So when we aggregate in total, it's 10,000. This is planning bus. That is one. Okay. But the interface is different. BPC different untundi, IP different untundi, BPS will have different interface. We are not worried on that. But ultimately, this will be used as a backend. That's how the data is manipulated in the cube. And look at this. The request is open. This request will be open until it holds minimum of 50,000 records into it. 50,000 records a request close gadanat. It will be still open. So multiple users will be planning, and all the data comes into the same request like this. Once it reaches 50,000, the request gets closed, and for the new planning data, it forms a new request to us. Minimum 50, not max. For example, for example, let's say my queue has got 49,900 records already in this request. Now there's an end user who is planning with say 2,000 records. Now already 49,900 అయిపోయింది, 100 records దానిలో ఉంది block. Now my end user is planning for 2,000 records at a time. Now will this 2,000 goes into same request or different request? Same request, minimum 50 annanu. So it cannot split that records. All the records have to go to the same open request. It can exceed 50, but minimum 50. Once it reaches that 50,000 some change, the request gets closed and the new request gets opened up. But the problem here is, until this request is open, is it available for reporting? So my user does the planning, immediately they would like to see it for reporting by comparing what was actual and what is my plan. If the planning cube untundi, actual cube untundi, they'll compare both, what was my actual and what is plan. So I'll build a multiplier on actual cube and planning cube, and then give them what was my plan value, what is my actual value, and then they do what if analysis on the comparison of the actual and plan. Okay, Rana? So the point here is, when the request is open, how do I enable that request for reporting this? Cube lo, planning cube lo request open undi, aina kuda reporting data vachadi ela chesamu anedi question. One thing is, I can select this and manually forcefully make it green. That is one option. And next option is, when I right click and say choose, and when I change the mode from planning mode to load mode, the request gets closed again. That is one option. But if I switch it to load mode, will the users, let's say there is an end user who's been doing planning, will it block them from planning? So this is not allowed for me. I can't do this. So without switching them back to load mode, I still want to do reporting on the data which is already been, where the request is open. Okay. So how do I do this? Go to query designer. So I have this plan, and then I take this. When I run this, it does not give me data because the request is open, not available for reporting. Then what I do is, in the data packet dimension, you will have characteristic called request ID. Bring it and restrict this with a ready-made variable called most recent data or most current data. Rendu variables untayi. You need to restrict this request ID with a ready-made variable called most recent data or most current data, and ready-made variables. If you restrict it with that, even though request is still open, I can still get the data for reporting. So I don't see any variable now. Those are ready-made business content variables. I can go to business content, install those variables. Yeah. I would like to say grouping, necessary objects, collection mode. Okay. I'll go to query elements. What is it you want? Variables, double click. So this will list me out all the ready-made variables given by SAP. From this, I'll have to pick up either most recent data or most current data. రెండు వేరియబుల్స్ ఉంటాయి. ఆ రెండు వేరియబుల్స్ ఏదో ఒకటి వాడితే I start getting this and I'll just use it. Get the data for reporting. This is the planning cube, and so each request 50,000 records, then most current. Okay. When I right click on this cube, do you have like create transformations? Can I connect data source? Can I switch to loading mode and then do normal loading from the cube? From normal source system, can I do normal loading this? Can I use this into multi-provider? Yes or no? Okay, yeah. Once I say I can use cube into multi-prod, any type of cube can be used into multi-prod. All the 5 types of cubes, any of the cube can be used into multi-prod. Note, okay. Next one, that's the real-time cube. So you don't have to worry so much on all this. I used to teach this IP and BPS previously in BW class only. When మన క్లాస్ లేట్ అయ్యేది తప్ప ఎవడు అడిగేటోడు కూడా లేడు. But now slowly now they're getting into this IP mode nowadays. అంటే BPC ఉంది strong for planning, but now what they're saying is after having HANA, the performance of planning with IP is lot better than BPC అని some customers are pushing down back to IP. అంటే IP and BPS was old. Now all the planning is all handled with BPC, but with HANA they say the performance of planning is lot better with IP, and you see some customers pushing down IP back again. So now there's some demand towards this also IP. Yeah. Next, direct access DTP cube bus. This is virtual bus. When I say virtual use mode, means what? Is it a data target bus? No, because there's no data physically stored, so it's not a data target. But is it an info provider? Yes. Without data physically stored in the cube, it does provide you data for reporting. Now look at this. First I'll demonstrate this. And so do you know about DTP, right? We have different types of DTPs. You already use standard DTP for loading data from source object to target object. We have used error DTP to load from error stack to what? To the target. You remember error DTP? Yes. Now we are going to touch base another type of DTP called direct access DTP. Actually 4 unnai. Standard, error, direct, then RDA DTP. Now we are touching on direct access DTP. Now let's take this focus. Again, I have a table. You know about extractions, right? Already. I have a table called VBAC in ECC, which I would like to consume in BW virtually. I don't want to load. I would like to read data from this table in ECC in BW in virtual. Again, I'm going to refer only those 4 fields. VBL and year date. I'm going to take only those 4 fields. Okay. See how do I do? I'm going to create. You know this. I'm doing all this in what? When I say EHP, this I'm doing in ECC. I'm going in say Y direct DS something. Just say create SD, put some description and then VBAC and then say what save. This is the data source name, description. It will be a package where you get saved in. This is the name of the extract structure. You know this. But there is another property called what is it? Direct access. This one undala. When you have one, it says what? Supported. Don't worry about aggregation pre-aggregate. Only a data source which says direct access is supported, I can connect that to virtual queue for DTP direct access. Otherwise, no. So I can't use LO data source for this because LO data source says not supported. So direct only the data source which says direct access is supported, those data sources can be connected to your virtual queue of direct access. Otherwise, yeah. I'll just go hiding all this. Then what will I do? In BW, I'm going to replicate this. Then what? Should I go about activating my data sources? Change, and then I will. You'll have the property. What it says? Any data source which says direct access is allowed, I can connect that to my remote cubes. So my data source is ready. So let me create the cube. Y So there is no more standard cube. SA what? It's a virtual provider. And as I say virtual provider, it will show me three things: BAP era, function modeler, and what is it? Based on DTP for direct access. Specify info objects. I'm going to have. I know I have the field. I already have info objects, right? I'm going to use them. అది మార్కెటింగ్ స్ట్రాటజీ కదపా చెప్పినాడు. ఓకే, ఓకే, I've got Calday and so create my cube with the necessary info objects, suppose. So right click on this cube and say create transformations and data source y direct underscore ds. ECC is my data source. So map it. Okay, there's no info badge, nothing. I'm just creating DTP and say what? Create DTP. What type of DTP is this? See, is it allowing me to change the standard or something? Direct access DTP and just activate. There's nothing like execute or something. No execution, nothing. Create direct access DTP. Then right click on this cube. You have something called, what is this option? Activate direct access first. And where you basically specify which is a source system connection. That's it, as I say. So look at the symbol here. It says virtual provider based on DTP bus. Ante. Did I do any loading? Nothing, right? I'm going to create a query on this provider. So I'll say VBLN and some date. Did I do any loading? No, right? That's it. And if you go to RSRT, and you get the results out. Where is this data coming from? From ECC tables. That is virtual queue. Okay, Nana, right? So this is how you implement virtual cubes based on DTP direct access. And type this scenario. So when to use this? In what kind of scenario do we really use this concept? Okay. So this profile would be scenario. Okay. First thing, generally when do we use this? Let's say I am supposed to load huge data volume into BW, but the periodicity of the report is only once in 3 months or once in 6 months. చాలా హ్యూజ్ డేటా లోడ్ చేయాలి క్యూబ్ బీడబ్ల్యూలోకి చేసి రిపోర్ట్ చేయాలి. రిపోర్ట్ ఎప్పుడు 6 నెలలకు ఒకసారి 3 నెలలకు ఒకసారి వాడుకుంటాడు. ఇన్ దట్ కైండ్ ఆఫ్ కేస్, ఇన్స్టెడ్ ఆఫ్ బ్రింగింగ్ హ్యూజ్ డేటా అండ్ దెన్ డూ లాట్ ఆఫ్ డేటా మేనేజ్మెంట్, కెన్ ఐ గో విత్ దిస్ రిమోట్ క్యూబ్? ఐ విల్ సే huge data with less reporting frequency. అనొచ్చా? ఓకేనా బాస్? అదొక సినారో టైప్లో వాడచ్చు. ఇంకో కేసు ఏంటంటే రీకన్సిలేషన్ అంటారు. స్పెల్లింగ్ నాకు ఏదో రీకన్సిలేషన్ కరెక్ట్? LIA ఇదా? ఓకే. సో రీకన్సిలేషన్ అంటే జనరల్గా ఇది వాడతాడు అంట. సో ద డేటా you know about LO extraction, COPA, all this, or DB connect, whatever it is. You load data into BW. Once it is loaded, how are we evaluating that whether the data in my BW is correct or not? Before my users raises an issue saying there is some problem with the data, I would like to be for sure that the data in BW is correct. How do you want to evaluate the concept? Okay. My first job, what I was supposed to do is every day I go to office. I was supposed to they give me some selections. I need to log into ECC, download data from some table, with the same selections, download data from the cube in BW, compare both, and check if there's any difference. ఇట్లా కాదని చెప్పి నేను డంప్ వేసేసుకోవడం మ్యాక్రో రాసి పెట్టింటాను. బటన్ కొడితే అదే చేసినట్టు పెట్టేసి రోజు ఫ్రీగా కూర్చుంటాను. నెక్స్ట్ వాళ్ళ కాన్సెప్ట్ ఏంటంటే క్యాన్ వి ఆటోమేట్ దిస్, నన్ను ఎత్తేయాలని ప్రయత్నం. వీడెందుకు రోజు క్యాన్ వి ఆటోమేట్ దిస్ పాయింట్ అనేది వన్ క్వశ్చన్. ఓకే, ఎస్ వీ కుడ్ ఆటోమేట్ దిస్. ఎట్లా? త్రూ నార్మల్ ఎక్స్ట్రాక్టర్స్ వీఆర్ లోడింగ్ ఇన్ టు బేసిక్ క్యూబ్, and from the same base table through virtual I am connecting to remote cube. Now remote cube is giving me data of what? ECC. Now basic cube is standard cube is giving me data what is there in BW. Now if I can create a multiproducer on top of it and give you a difference, then do you know I build a multiproducer on top of the standard cube and the virtual cube and create Beck's query on top of multiple which says net value from remote cube, net value from basic. Can I do this? Can you split up provider level net value? Can you give me one column, let's say net value restricted with info provider characteristic as cube 1, basic cube, net value restricted with info provider as remote cube, then show the difference. Now for each document, can I know what is value in BW, what is value in ECC? Instead of seeing, and then I just want to know only differences, right? Then I can create one formula saying this value minus this value. If it is 0, means it's matching. If it is not equal to 0, then it is not matching. So I can build a condition which says where this is not equal to 0, so that when I run the report, it will only show me which is not equal to 0. Okay, ఇంకా ఎక్స్ట్రీమ్ ఇది అర్థమైంది. సినార్ అక్కడ వరకు అర్థమైంది బాస్. ఇంకా ఎలా మాట్లాడాలంటే, నౌ ఈజ్ ఇట్స్ ఆఫ్ ఎనీ యూజ్ ఫర్ బిజినెస్? బిజినెస్ అవసరం అన్న ఇట్లా రిపోర్ట్ లేదు, నాకు అవసరం. యాజ్ అ టెక్నికల్ పర్సన్ టు మేక్ షూర్ ది data is in sync, it is for me, not for the business user. So there will be lot of validation reports. I can't go about running every day all the reports, right? So what I'll do next, there is a concept called information broadcasting and outundannata, through which you can run the reports in the background, send the output of the reports to an emails also. Do you know there is concept called exceptions? Red, green, yeah. It's you run the report, and wherever there is not equal to 0, let's say I put some red exception, and when there is some red exception, it will trigger a mail to me. I can do that. And whenever there is some data issue problem in the report, it would send an email to me. Then based on the mail, I will react on that. Atla kuda cheyochu. Mottham automation on that. So I'll have a standard queue where the normal data loading is done every day. I'll have a remote queue which will refer data remotely from the EC system. Then combining both, I'll have multi-prod. On the multi-prod, I'll have a report, and the report is scheduled with you'll have exceptions, red exception, which shows the data differences. On the by using information broadcasting, it will run the query in the background. On red exception, it will trigger an email to me. We'll see that information broadcasting is a separate topic, but the complete scenario is like this. And then normal data load should happen regularly. And when this data validation reports runs in, and if it finds any data issues, it would send an email to me, and I can react on that cube. And then I'll go to the cube. Okay, I check what is the differences, and then I'll try to refill or by using repair full request, I'll load the data what has been missed out, and then make sure the data is in sync. Palan document miss aitundani telisinanuko, I'll do a selected deletion of the cube. I'll go to ECC, refill static setup only for the document number, and do a full upload, and then get it back to my cube. Cheyichanatla. So that is the kind of scenario you can look at reconciliations of this. Rendu case. When the apart from reconciliation, if there is huge data and the frequency of the reporting is less, I can look at the data for best scenario to fit in this case, or for reconciliations. Okay, now fine. Next bus. Next is what? Based on BAPI and based on function model bus. When I say based on BAPI, look at this. You have source systems. If you see, they have Excel system connected with BAPI. when I say external system connect, BAPI ante business application programming interface means it's a program which will interface multiple applications ante. It's a program which can interface multiple applications. Now what I would like to do is I would like to have a virtual cube which will read data from different systems through a programming, through a program. That is called as BAPI ante. Don't get into anything, but just say right click, say create cube. It's virtual, and then when you say BAPI, it does ask you what is my source system. Then basically when you integrate non-SAP systems through BAPI connections through Informatica or BODS, you want to consume that external systems data into BW through what? BAPI connection. Then you go with BAPI cube. Don't worry, this is never used at all. One BAPI cube don't do that. Then there's something called what is based on function model. You'll have a cube and you'll write a function model for it. You go to say, look at this. Virtual cube, then what? Based on function model, you'll say, then you'll start specifying the name of what is name of the function model. So what is that? You write a function model which will basically like ABAP code function model which will read data from different tables or whatever it is, and then gives you. And the cube will not have any database. At the runtime when you fire a query, your query will fire the cube will fire function model will read data from the sources wherever it is, and then gives you. That is called cube based on function model. This also never used, but I already explained you for your previous batch. There is already a video on how to create cube with function model. All this you refer to that. If you are interested, read it. Interview discussion ledu, not about interview. Even in the real time, we would never use this concept. Very 0.0001% అన్నట్టు. సో కొద్దిగా అబ్బాయి కూడా హెవీగా ఉంటుంది. ఇట్స్ వేస్ట్ ఆఫ్ టైం. అంత కష్టపడినా లాస్ట్ యూజ్ కూడా చేయమన్నట్టు. But if you're interested, if you're really strong ABAPer, you can take that. I'll చెప్తాను ముందు బ్యాచ్ వీడియో దీంట్లో పెట్టమంటే just refer to that video. That's enough. Don't worry much on it. Okay. And basically what it is, you go to write a function model ABAP code in such a way that it reads data from different sources or different table or wherever it is, and you update into some internal table. I_T_data ఏదో ఉంటుంది. So when you fire out a query, it actually triggers the cube, and cube will trigger the function model. Function model will read data from this, and runtime will give you data. మనం ఒకవేళ చూడాలంటే I can show you. But don't get into this. Our topic is marchipopus. Don't get into this. So this is like it's just giving me some dummy. I just made a simple one. Yeah? So this is actually a cube based on function model. If you see this cube, this is the cube. So we're going to choose a display, extras menu. What is this? Function model based details. What is this? This is a function model. So where can I see the function model? The SC37 it is created. So if you just నేనేం చేశానంటే I just took some table, ఒక database table పెట్టుకుని ఈ database table I just maintained some content. Old geo, new geo అని పెట్టిన. So instead of loading data from this table to cube, I wanted to have virtual reading from the table. So whenever I fire a query on this cube, my queue will trigger function model. Function model will read, select on this table and then update it. Does not load, but give it to you. When I select this, so table a bit, I'm just doing assign component assignment. We'll just writing. This perform mode get components of global Kelly, it does something. You just look at this if you require. Very rare scenario. Okay, but we used it. Then what example so when we were working with BMW, we did this cube. Lifelong example. We had a cube which has got different volumes. We had only one keyword called volumes, and there's another field called volume type. అంటే వాళ్ళ కార్స్ ఉంటాయి కదా, దే హ్యావ్ గోట్ డిఫరెంట్ టైప్ ఆఫ్ వాల్యూమ్స్. అంటే ఎట్లా అంటే కార్స్ విచ్ ఆర్ రెడీ ఫర్ సేల్, అదొక టైప్ ఆఫ్ వాల్యూమ్ ఉంటుంది. వాళ్ళు ఏంటంటే దే మ్యానుఫ్యాక్చర్ కార్స్, బట్ దే విల్ బి యూజింగ్ కార్స్ ఫర్ ట్రయల్స్ అని. అంటే మామూలు ట్రయల్కి వాడతారు. దట్ అవి కూడా కార్స్ ఉంటాయి కదా. సో దట్ వాల్యూమ్ ఆఫ్ కార్స్ విల్ బి ఆఫ్ డిఫరెంట్ టైప్. అంటే వాల్యూమ్ టైప్ వేరే ఉంటుంది అన్నట్టు. అంటే ట్రయల్కి వాడే కార్లు వేరే, రెడీ ఫర్ సేల్ వేరే, అండ్ ఇన్ ప్రొడక్షన్ అనేది వేరే. అట్లా ఒక్కొక్క డిఫరెంట్ వాల్యూమ్ టైప్స్ ఉన్నాయన్నమాట. ఓకే, వాడు ఏంటంటే దే హ్యావ్ డిఫరెంట్ కైండ్ ఆఫ్ ఇన్వెంటరీ రిపోర్ట్స్. ఒక్కో టైప్ ఆఫ్ రిపోర్ట్ చూడాలని, ఇన్వెంటరీ రిపోర్ట్స్ చూడాలని. ఒకడేమో దే గివెన్ మీ సమ్ నంబర్స్ లైక్ ఇన్వెంటరీ రిపోర్ట్ 1, రిపోర్ట్ 2, రిపోర్ట్ 3. అంటే ఈచ్ రిపోర్ట్ ఈస్ వన్ టైప్ ఆఫ్ ఇన్వెంటరీ కైండ్ ఆఫ్ రిపోర్ట్. అట్లా 32 రిపోర్ట్స్ ఉన్నాయన్నమాట. సో రిపోర్ట్ 1 నీడ్స్ లాజిక్ సేయింగ్ all the volumes which are ready for production minus all the volume which has been used for trial rides is my stock. Okko report okko type of stock what adugutunadu, the different logic of the stock calculations. So what was the logic I was supposed to do? I was supposed to create 32 cubes and connect this cube to 32 cubes, and in each of the cube start routine, end routine, I was supposed to implement my logic for that stock that particular report stock calculation. I'll create one cube 1, connect this cube, and in the transformation I'll manipulate data such a way that it does perform only that particular report specific stock calculation. Atla 32 cubes ki 32 routines rasi petti okko report okko cube మీద ఉండాలన్నట్టు. Got the point? That was my requirement. Instead of creating 32 cubes and 32 transformations, why don't we develop a single cube and have a ABAP function model? This ABAP function model, what does it do? It takes the input in the BEX query. You'll have a report ID filter fixed on it. It reads the selections of the BEX query, report name. Based on the report ID, it does read the data from the cube. Every report will need the basic cube data, but how does it manipulate the stock volumes and gives the result is different. With one cube with function model, in the BEX query I'm saying like I've got a category called report ID. I say restrict with the REP1 for query 1. For query 2 I'll restrict with REP2. So the selections of the query is passed on to my function model with the imports. I'll check if the L underscore T underscore range variables is equal to what? Input parameter is equal to report 1. Read stock in ready for consumption cars minus that from the cube, and then give the stock report. I'll put the report ID in the if condition and manipulating the different stocks and giving it out. The solution was good, but even today every day 2 tickets come on that queue. And the stability leda solutioning. The implement for that time, but it is not still stable on it, because I had to implement the logic of 32 reports in it, and each report owner is a different person, and we're not sure whether the logics what they've given is correct or not also. అర్థమైందా? అంటే అంత స్టెబిలిటీ లేదు సొల్యూషనింగ్లో. బట్ వాజ్ ఇట్ అ గుడ్ సొల్యూషన్ ఇన్ దట్ సినారియో? బికాస్ ఇన్స్టెడ్ ఆఫ్ గెటింగ్ అబౌట్ క్రియేటింగ్ 32 cubes, storing same data in different formats redundantly, and writing 32 transformation logics, I could do that with one ABAP function model. That was almost around 2500 lines of code. And only if condition, if report 1 అయితే ఒక లాజిక్, రిపోర్ట్ 2 అయితే వేరే లాజిక్, రిపోర్ట్ 3 వేరే లాజిక్. స్ట్రక్చర్ ఆఫ్ ది రిపోర్ట్స్ ఆర్ సేమ్, దాంట్లో ఉన్న కంటెంట్ మారుతా ఉందన్నట్టు రిపోర్ట్ ఐడిని బట్టి. ద ఇన్వెంటరీ క్యాలిక్యులేషన్స్ ఆర్ డిఫరెంట్. In that case, we had used cube with function module. Very rare bus. A topic touch just get there's some concept called cube based on BAPI, which could be for external applications, or cube based on function module. Ante. Don't get into that at all. One more point I wanted to stress on now. You see in the direct access DTP, right? Virtual. Can I implement that with flat file? Can I implement that with DB Connect? Yes. Any data source which supports direct access can be used for direct access DTP. If you go to the data sources, so I go to flat file, the flat file data source anuko. Ikkada no DTP is allowed for direct, then what? Can I use it for direct access? No, I should drop down, set it as what? While creating flat file data source, set that as allowed, then you can connect that. On the Y and HANA. Now this is my HANA data, DB Connect data source. Even here what it says, not allowed. But if I set it as allowed, then I can connect that to direct access DTP. Not only ECC data source, not only SAP, any data source which supports direct access as allowed can be utilized for virtual cubes, remote cubes, direct access DTP cubes. Clear? Okay.